They trained the perfect soldier, disciplined, emotionless, built to survive anything: betrayal, silence, heartbreak. This soldier was prepared for war, manipulation, and control. But they weren't ready for you. If you're reading this right now, it's not by chance. You're in the middle of a shift, moving from proving your worth to owning it. The things you used to chase, they're starting to align with who you've become. You didn't beat them at their own game by being colder or harder. You did it by being real, by staying grounded, clear, and relentless. That's what they weren't prepared for. And if this message is speaking to you, take a second to support this movement. Hit the like button. Subscribe to help us reach 5,000 subscribers. And drop a comment below telling us how you're stepping into your power. Every word you write reinforces your growth and reminds others they're not alone. Stay with this message until the end, because the shift is already happening. You're not becoming the storm. You are the storm. He was forged in the fires of hardship, trained to be unshakable, to wear cold steel where a heart should be. Every lesson he learned was about control, about shutting down vulnerability. His life was a battlefield where emotions were weaknesses and survival meant detachment. They crafted him to withstand storms of pain and loss, but never to be touched by something as unpredictable as genuine love. Yet, when you entered his world, none of his defenses stood a chance. You were not another enemy to defeat or a challenge to conquer. You came with a presence so raw and real, it unsettled every carefully constructed wall he had built around himself. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was a collision of two forces, one armored and rigid, the other fluid and alive. He expected to break you the way he had broken others, but he had no idea what was coming. He was ready for battle scars, but not for the kind of healing only truth and vulnerability could bring. Your arrival was the unanticipated variable, the missing piece in a war he thought he'd already won. People are often prepared for the storms they've faced before, but not for the ones they haven't. He had been tested by fire many times, but you were the rain, gentle, persistent, and life-giving. And sometimes rain can wash away even the hardest stone. This is a story about the limits of strength when it is forged without love. They built him to withstand war, but never to embrace peace until you redefined what strength really means. He had a history of battles won, victories marked by pride and silence, but when it came to your heart, the rules changed. You were not an enemy to defeat, but a force he couldn't predict or control. No amount of strategy or armor could break through your authenticity. The more he tried to keep distance, the closer your truth drew him. He thought he could tame you with coldness, but your warmth was unyielding. It wasn't a fight for dominance. It was a silent invitation to come alive beyond the walls he'd built. Imagine a warrior who's always fought with a sword, only to find the most powerful weapon isn't steel, but softness. Your heart wasn't a prize to be won or a game to be played. It was a mirror reflecting his own humanity back to him, and that was terrifying. He realized that some victories come not from conquest, but from surrender. Your love didn't ask him to change overnight. It simply showed him that change was possible, that healing was real, and that he didn't have to be broken to be whole. This wasn't about domination. It was about connection, a raw, imperfect, beautiful connection that defied everything he thought he knew about strength and survival. You weren't just another challenge to overcome. You were the reckoning, the unavoidable truth he tried to run from. When a person lives behind walls built from silence and pride, meeting someone who refuses to be ignored is nothing short of revolutionary. Every time he pushed you away, you didn't retreat, you stood firmer. You weren't in this to win a battle or prove a point. You were here to reveal the parts of him that were hidden even from himself. Your presence demanded honesty, a reckoning with his own shadows. Think about the storms that shake the earth and force growth. That's what you were to him. Not destruction, but transformation. The kind of power that makes you question everything you thought you were. He had been prepared to fight wars, but not to face the person who held up a mirror to his soul. You shattered his illusions without raising a hand. And in that breaking, something new was born, something stronger than any armor he ever wore. A reckoning is painful, but it is also necessary. You weren't there to break him down. You were there to build him back up in a way he never imagined possible. All his life, he had been taught to conquer others, to push past pain, to silence emotions, and to never show weakness. His victories were measured in control and distance. But with you, he found a battlefield that was internal, terrifying, and unavoidable. You didn't fight with fists or fury. You fought with truth. Your strength was quiet, unwavering, and relentless. You didn't try to break him from the outside. You made him look inward, confronting the parts of himself he'd spent a lifetime avoiding. Facing oneself is the hardest war anyone can fight. It requires courage beyond physical endurance, the bravery to sit with pain, to acknowledge fears, and to open wounds that have been buried for years. With you, he was forced into that battle. This is the kind of fight that changes people, the kind that no training manual can prepare you for. You held space for him to be vulnerable without judgment, and in that space, real healing began. He learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating others. It's embracing who you truly are, scars and all. His armor was thick, designed to repel anything that threatened his peace. But you didn't charge or strike. You simply showed up, authentic, patient, and unafraid. Your presence chipped away at his defenses in ways no weapon could. Think of how water can erode stone over time, not with force but with persistence. That's what your love did. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but steady and true. You let him see you without masks, without conditions, and that invitation slowly dissolved the walls he'd been hiding behind. He had been armored for war, but not for the quiet revolution of someone who loved without demands. You taught him that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most courageous form of strength there is. Your power wasn't in breaking him down. It was in standing firm while he broke himself free. The most profound change often happens not through force, but through the gentle persistence of being seen and accepted. In the end, his armor wasn't shattered by battle cries or fury. It was undone by love that was patient, real, and unwavering. To chase what you deserved, but you refused. You stood tall, grounded in your worth, and that was his greatest defeat. When someone trained for manipulation meets a soul that won't beg, the rules of engagement crumble. You showed that strength isn't about clinging to what tries to slip away. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to walk away with dignity intact. That refusal to plead rewrote the story of power between you. This wasn't about stubbornness. It was about self-respect. You knew that begging for love is like trying to hold water in your hands. Impossible and draining. Your quiet refusal was louder than any cry for attention could ever be. In real relationships, power lies in mutual respect, not desperation. By choosing yourself over desperation, you reclaimed your strength and shifted the battlefield entirely. The mission to control or win you was doomed from the start, because you weren't a prize to be begged for. You were a force to be respected. He had faced many who faltered under pressure, who broke and begged for reconciliation. But you were different, unyielding, steady, and unbroken. Your strength surprised him because it wasn't loud or aggressive, but calm and unwavering. It's rare to meet someone who can stand their ground without becoming hard or cold. You held space for both tenderness and toughness, and that balance was something he had never encountered. Your refusal to crumble under his games forced him to reconsider what strength really meant. It wasn't about control or intimidation. It was about resilience and grace. You taught him that being unbreakable doesn't mean being unfeeling. It means knowing your value so deeply that nothing can shake it. You were the rock in a sea of chaos, and he wasn't prepared for that kind of force. This is the kind of strength that shifts power, not through dominance, but through unwavering presence and self-love. Softness has often been mistaken for weakness, but you flipped that narrative. You showed that true power lies in being vulnerable, open, and kind, even when the world expects hardness and cruelty. Your softness was your superpower. It disarmed aggression and invited connection. It spoke louder than any shout, healing deeper than any battle wound. Your gentle strength created a space where healing could happen, where walls could come down without fear. Being soft in a hard world takes immense courage. It means showing up without armor, risking pain, and believing in the goodness of connection even when it's fragile. You embodied that courage every day. The power of softness is transformative. It doesn't demand or control. It invites and heals. You taught him that love is not about breaking others, but about standing beside them in truth and compassion. By embracing your softness, you redefined what it means to be strong, not invincible, but deeply human. They prepared him to be a soldier, disciplined, cold, detached. But you weren't just another opponent to be outlasted. You were a force of nature, unpredictable, fierce, and unstoppable. Your presence was like a storm that changes landscapes. It uprooted old patterns, washed away illusions, and made space for new growth. You didn't come quietly. You came like thunder, shaking his foundations and demanding transformation. Soldiers follow orders. Storms don't ask permission. You challenged every rule he thought was unbreakable, rewriting his story with every step you took. Your energy was not to be tamed, only witnessed and respected. In a world of soldiers, you were the storm, powerful, relentless, and utterly necessary. You changed the weather of his life, and nothing would ever be the same again. Sometimes it's not about the battle you're trained for. It's about the storm you become. He was used to making noise, shouting, demanding, controlling. But your silence was a different kind of power, one that he couldn't fight or ignore. It was calm, confident, and deeply unsettling. Silence can be a battlefield. It can hold space for reflection, force accountability, and speak truths that words never can. Your quiet strength was like a mirror, reflecting his own chaos back at him, until he had no choice but to face it. He tried to break your silence with noise, but it only made your resolve louder. In the stillness, you found power he had never seen, a power that didn't scream but demanded respect. Your silence wasn't absence, it was presence. It was saying, without words, that you were here, you mattered, and you wouldn't be diminished. That kind of strength rattles even the toughest warriors. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a shout or a sword. It's the quiet refusal to be broken. He walked away, convinced he had won. But in reality, he lost the very thing that could have saved him. Your love, your presence, your truth. Victory was a lie wrapped in loss. True strength isn't measured by who stays or who leaves, but by the courage to honor your own worth and walk away when you are no longer valued. You didn't lose him. You chose yourself over illusion. It's easy to mistake absence for victory, but real triumph is found in integrity and self-respect. He may have thought he escaped the storm, but you were the storm, and storms leave lasting marks. His retreat was a surrender, not a conquest. By walking away, you claimed the power that he thought he had stolen, and that is a victory that no one can take away. Sometimes, the greatest wins are silent. They happen in the spaces where self-love refuses to be compromised. Everyone expects the climax to be loud, angry, filled with shouting and fighting. But your final stand was different. It wasn't rage that broke the cycle. It was peace. You didn't have to yell or scream to be heard. You showed that peace is a form of power, a steady, unshakable calm that no storm can erode. Your peace was your final weapon, the ultimate surrender to self-love and clarity. In choosing peace, you reclaimed control. You stopped fighting a battle that no longer served you and embraced a future where your worth wasn't tied to conflict or chaos. Peace is often misunderstood as passivity, but in your story, it was the fiercest rebellion of all. It was saying, "I am enough, and I will not settle for less." The real victory isn't in the fight. It's in the quiet power of choosing peace on your own terms. He thought life was a game to be won with strategy, manipulation, and control. But you rewrote the playbook with authenticity, vulnerability, and unwavering self-worth. Games are made for those who want to keep score, but you showed that real connection has no scoreboard. Your rules were simple. Be honest, be kind, be true to yourself, and nothing else mattered. Changing the rules isn't easy. It takes courage to stand against the tide of expectations and patterns that don't serve you. You did it anyway, refusing to be boxed in by someone else's agenda. He may have tried to outmaneuver you, but you weren't playing to win. You were playing to be real, and that kind of authenticity is unbeatable. In the end, the game ended not with a winner or loser, but with two people who learned what it truly means to love without games. Survival is often praised as a triumph, but you were destined for more than just getting by. You were built to thrive, to conquer your fears, and to rise stronger than ever before. Survival is reactive. It's about holding on when everything feels like it's falling apart. Winning is proactive. It's about stepping into your power and owning your story with pride and grace. You didn't just endure pain, you transformed it into fuel. Every scar became a badge of honor. Every setback, a setup for a comeback. Your journey wasn't about avoiding defeat. It was about claiming victory on your own terms. Winning isn't about beating others. It's about becoming the fullest, most fearless version of yourself. And that is a triumph no one can take away. You are living proof that some battles aren't meant to break you. They're meant to make you unstoppable. The soldier was trained to retreat when things got hard, to protect himself by running away from pain and vulnerability. But the warrior stayed. The warrior faced the fire, stood tall in the storm, and embraced every part of the journey. Walking away is sometimes necessary, but staying and growing is where real strength is forged. The warrior chooses courage over comfort, truth over illusion, and love over fear. You showed that being a warrior isn't about how many battles you fight or win. It's about showing up authentically every single day, no matter the cost. The soldier leaves with scars, The warrior wears them proudly as symbols of resilience, growth, and transformation. You became the warrior in your own story, rewriting what it means to fight and to heal. In the end, the difference between a soldier and a warrior isn't in the fight. It's in the heart that chooses to stay, love, and evolve. In a world that celebrates noise and chaos, silence can feel like invisibility, but silence has a language all its own, a language that reaches deeper than words ever could. When someone chooses silence, not out of defeat, but out of strength, it becomes a powerful statement.